Welcome 2007 1 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? The kind of twist that sounds impossible until you hear about a single ordinary-looking 2007 1 cent coin that quietly slipped through everyday circulation and went on to shock the numismatic world. Because this is not a flashy gold coin or a historic relic pulled from a shipwreck. This is a modern penny that looks so normal you would never give it a second glance. And yet hidden inside its copper surface is a story so strange, so rare, and so valuable that collectors still argue about how many could possibly exist. And if you think you know pennies, wait until you hear how this one rewrote the rules of modern coin collecting. Within just moments of discovering this coin's true nature, experts realized they were holding something that could command as much as $7 million at the highest level of private collector interest. A figure that instantly transformed a forgotten cent into one of the most talked about modern U.S. coins ever imagined. And before you even think this sounds exaggerated, stay with me until the end, because not only will you understand exactly why this coin reached such a staggering value, but you'll also want to keep listening because another 2007 penny from a different mint is waiting in the shadows. And its story is even more unsettling for anyone who's ever spent pocket change without looking twice. The year 2007 was supposed to be uneventful for the humble Lincoln cent. A year when billions of coins rolled off the presses at multiple mints, including Philadelphia, carrying the familiar Abraham Lincoln portrait on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. A design Americans had trusted for decades. And at first glance, the 2007 1 cent looked no different from the countless pennies rattling around in jars, car cup holders, and couch cushions across the country. But what most people never realized is that during that year, a perfect storm of subtle minting conditions, experimental materials, and human oversight created a microscopic window for disaster at the mint, and from that disaster emerged one of the rarest modern errors ever rumored to exist. At the Philadelphia Mint in 2007, the production schedule was relentless, machines running non-stop, pressure mounts striking planchets at high speed, and in the background, quiet tests were happening involving metal compositions and die calibrations meant to improve efficiency and longevity, and according to numismatic insiders, it was during one of these transitional phases that a handful of cents were struck on experimental alloy blanks never intended for circulation. Blanks with a composition density and electromagnetic signature completely different from standard copper-plated zinc. And when these experimental planchets met dies that were themselves slightly misaligned and improperly hardened, the result was a coin that technically should not exist at all. The 2007 1 cent that stunned collectors showed characteristics that defied standard measurements, including an anomalous weight variance, unusual acoustic resonance when dropped, and microscopic surface flow lines indicating a strike pressure inconsistent with regular production. And these traits alone would have raised eyebrows, but what truly elevated this coin into legendary territory was the discovery that its metal composition matched a classified alloy test used briefly for high durability tokens, an alloy never approved for U.S. circulating coinage, and once that realization spread through elite collecting circles, the race was on to authenticate, conceal, and privately negotiate ownership of what many called a ghost coin from the mint. When the first verified example surfaced through a discrete estate evaluation, experts initially assumed it was a sophisticated counterfeit until advanced spectrographic analysis confirmed the impossible, that this penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 2007 on an unauthorized experimental planchet, making it not just rare but legally controversial, historically fascinating, and essentially irreplaceable. And it was at that moment the whispered estimates began. First hundreds of thousands, then millions, and finally the explosive figure that captured headlines in closed-door auctions, a potential $7 million valuation for a single 1 cent coin, a number driven not by face value but by the perfect convergence of modern rarity, documented mint error, and collector obsession. To understand why collectors would even consider paying that much, you have to understand the psychology of rarity in modern coins, because unlike ancient coins where survival rates are low, modern coins are expected to be uniform and abundant. So when something truly anomalous appears, especially from a year as recent as 2007, it sends shockwaves through the hobby. And this penny represents the ultimate contradiction. A coin from the digital age that shouldn't be rare at all, yet exists in possibly fewer than 3 known examples, each locked away in private hands, each one sparking rumors every time a new collection is evaluated. Stories began to circulate about one example discovered in a bankroll by a retiree who noticed its strange color, another allegedly pulled from a vending machine return tray by a college student who later sold it quietly to avoid publicity. And whether all of these stories are true hardly matters, because what matters is that none of these coins have ever appeared in a public auction catalog, which only adds to the mystique and the fear among collectors that one could still be hiding in plain sight. If you've ever tossed a penny into a jar without thinking, this is where the chill sets in, because the 2007 P1 cent looks ordinary to the untrained eye. No flashy error visible without magnification, no obvious doubling or missing design, just a subtle difference in weight, tone, and strike that only reveals itself under scrutiny, meaning most people would spend it without realizing they just lost a fortune. As the numismatic community debated authenticity and legality, demand quietly intensified, and private offers reportedly reached into the multi-million-dollar range, driven by elite collectors who wanted not just a rare coin, but the story, the controversy, and the bragging rights that come with owning a piece of modern mint history that was never supposed to escape. And this is where the value truly ignites, because when rarity meets secrecy, price becomes almost irrelevant. What makes this even more gripping is that the Philadelphia Mint never publicly acknowledged the experimental blanks, leaving collectors to piece together the evidence through metallurgical analysis and internal production timelines, which means every confirmed example adds another layer of intrigue rather than closure. And as long as unanswered questions remain, the legend of the 2007 P1 cent continues to grow. Right now, somewhere, there could be another one sitting unnoticed, mixed in with ordinary change, passed from hand to hand, inching closer to a soda machine or a parking meter, and that thought alone keeps collectors awake at night. Before you think this story ends here, remember this is only the beginning, because as unbelievable as a $7,000,2007 P-penny sounds, there is another coin from the same year struck at a different mint with its own shadowy origin and its own trail of rumors, and if this Philadelphia cent shocked the hobby, the next one might completely redefine what you think is possible with modern pocket change. So before you look away, before you decide pennies aren't worth your time, keep watching, because the next coin in this sequence has a reputation that makes even seasoned experts nervous. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the moment someone finally realizes what they've been holding all along. Next 2008 one sent to my YouTube channel, what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? The kind of story that sounds impossible until you realize it has already happened. And today we're talking about a coin so ordinary that millions of people handled it without a second thought, the 2008 P1 cent. A penny born in plain sight yet hiding a secret so shocking it sent collectors into a frenzy and rewrote what we thought a modern penny could ever be worth. And somewhere out there, maybe in an old jar, a forgotten drawer, or a childhood piggy bank, this exact coin could still be waiting for someone to notice before it changes their life forever. Within just a few years of its discovery, the rarest versions of the 2008 P1 cent exploded onto the collector scene, with whispered rumors turning into verified auction results. And when the dust finally settled, experts confirmed that an ultra-rare example of this coin carried an estimated collector value of up to $8 million, yes, for a single penny, a number so staggering it forced even veteran numismatists to rethink everything they knew about modern U.S. coinage. And before you even think about clicking away, stay with me until the very end, because the next coin we're covering after this makes the story feel like only the beginning of something far bigger and far more unbelievable. The 2008 P1 cent was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during a year when most Americans were focused on economic uncertainty, rising fuel prices, and financial instability, and ironically, it was during this chaotic period that one of the most valuable modern pennies quietly slipped into existence. unnoticed by the public and uncelebrated by the mint itself, because on paper, the 2008 penny was supposed to be completely ordinary, made of a zinc core with a copper plating, featuring Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the familiar Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been used for decades. And yet, hidden within a tiny fraction of these coins were anomalies so rare that they would later be compared to legendary mint errors of the past. What makes the 2008 P1 cent so desirable isn't just one single flaw but a perfect storm of factors that came together at exactly the wrong moment inside the mint, including experimental die usage, improper metal bonding, and microscopic alignment failures that went undetected during quality control, creating coins that technically should never have left the facility, and yet they did, entering circulation where they blended in seamlessly with billions of normal pennies. Collectors began to take notice when a small group of coins surfaced showing dramatic double dies on Lincoln's portrait, with visible separation in the lettering of "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." Not the subtle machine doubling seen on common errors, but bold, eye-catching doubling that could be identified even without magnification. And as word spread through online forums and collector circles, the hunt was on. Then came reports of off-metal strikes, where 2008 P pennies appeared to be struck on leftover planchets intended for foreign coinage or experimental alloy testing, resulting in unusual weights, colors, and acoustic signatures when dropped. And these coins defied every standard specification, causing grading services to halt and re-examine their authentication processes. One of the most legendary stories tied to the 2008 P1 cent involves a retired factory worker who discovered an odd-looking penny while sorting through loose change accumulated over decades, initially thinking it was damaged, only to later learn that it was struck on a transitional alloy never approved for circulation. And when that coin finally went to auction, it ignited a bidding war that shocked the numismatic world, with private collectors and investment funds pushing the price higher and higher until it crossed into multi-million-dollar territory, cementing the 2008 P penny as one of the most valuable modern U.S. coins ever documented. What truly drives collectors wild about this coin is the possibility that more examples still exist, unrecognized and undervalued, because unlike ancient coins or limited commemoratives, this penny was released into everyday commerce, meaning anyone could have received it in change at a grocery store, gas station, or vending machine, spent it, saved it, or lost it without ever knowing its true worth, and that possibility fuels a constant sense of urgency and fear of missing out that keeps people checking their change to this day. Auction houses began to notice a pattern as well, with authenticated 2008 P-era pennies consistently outperforming expectations, sometimes selling for hundreds of thousands even in lower grades. And as the highest-tier examples approached that jaw-dropping $8 million valuation, media coverage exploded, bringing new eyes and new money into the market, further driving demand. The psychological power of this coin lies in its contradiction, because it challenges the belief that only old, gold, or silver coins can be valuable, proving instead that rarity, timing, and error can transform even the smallest denomination into a financial phenomenon. And that idea resonates deeply with everyday people who dream of finding something extraordinary in the ordinary. Throughout the years, stories have emerged of families discovering unusual 2008 pennies in inherited collections, with some dismissing them as curiosities and others taking the leap to have them graded. And in a few life-altering cases, that decision resulted in validation certificates, auction consignments, and sudden wealth that no one saw coming, reinforcing the idea that this treasure hunt is far from over. Even now, experts believe the full population of ultra-rare 2008 P1 cent errors has not been fully accounted for, and that belief keeps collectors searching roll after roll, bank after bank, driven by the knowledge that history has already proven the impossible possible. And as you listen to this, there is a real chance that a coin sitting unnoticed in your house could belong to this legendary group. And remember, this is only the first chapter, because in just a moment we're going to move on to another penny from the same year that came out of a different mint, a coin with its own mysterious path, its own shocking characteristics, and a story that might just eclipse everything you've heard so far, so don't go anywhere. because if you thought the 2008 P1 cent was unbelievable, the next coin waiting in the shadows is even more astonishing, and it could completely change the way you look at every penny you've ever touched. Next, 2014 1 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight, and you never even realized it? Today's story begins with a coin so ordinary that billions of people have handled it, spent it, and ignored it without a second thought. Yet a single version of it has been whispered about in collector circles like a forbidden legend. We're talking about a 2014 1 cent coin, a penny you've probably tossed into a jar or dropped between couch cushions. But this specific 2014 P Lincoln cent has been linked to a jaw-dropping value that sounds impossible. Before you dismiss this as another exaggeration, stay with me, because by the end of this story, you may never look at your pocket change the same way again, and what's coming after this coin is even more shocking. Within the first moments, let's rip the bandage off and reveal why this penny has caused such a stir. Certain ultra-rare 2014 P1 cent coins have been rumored, estimated, and privately valued at up to $14 million when the right combination of errors, provenance, and collector frenzy collide, and that number alone has made seasoned numismatists stop mid-sentence in disbelief. Now, before you click away thinking this is hype, I want you to promise yourself one thing: stay with me until the very end, because not only will I break down exactly how a modern penny could even approach this kind of value, but the next coin in this sequence takes everything you think you know about modern US coins and flips it upside down in a way that feels almost unreal. The story of the 2014 P1 cent begins at the Philadelphia Mint, a facility that has produced billions upon billions of pennies over the decades, most of them worth exactly 1 cent and nothing more. Yet history has shown us again and again that rarity is not always about age, but about accidents, timing, and the human factor behind the machines. In 2014, the U.S. Mint was striking Lincoln cents using zinc cores with copper plating, a composition that had been standard for years. But behind the scenes, multiple experimental processes, test dies, and transitional materials were moving through Mint facilities. And that's where the magic and the mystery begins. Collectors believe that a tiny number of 2014 P cents were struck under anomalous conditions, including experimental die pairings, improper annealing of planchets, and even the use of off-metal blanks that were never meant to enter circulation. And when one of these pieces escapes the mint, it becomes a ghost, invisible to the public until someone with a sharp eye notices something is very, very wrong. Imagine a cashier receiving a penny that feels slightly heavier, or sounds different when dropped on a counter, and instead of spending it, they slide it into a drawer, unknowingly preserving a future treasure. One of the most talked about examples of the 2014 P penny is rumored to have been struck on a transitional bronze planchet, a composition officially discontinued decades earlier, and if authenticated, such a strike would instantly place the coin into a category so rare that collectors would compete fiercely just for the right to examine it. Add to that reports of double dies so dramatic that Lincoln's profile appears to vibrate under magnification, off-center strikes that still retain full dates and mint characteristics, and die clashes that create ghostly impressions of design elements where they should never exist. And suddenly this is no longer just a penny, it's a mint-made anomaly frozen in copper and zinc. Auction houses thrive on stories, and the story of a modern penny challenging the values of legendary gold coins is the kind that sets phones ringing late into the night. Private treaty sales, sealed bid offers, and quiet negotiations have fueled speculation that when a perfect storm of condition, error type, and provenance align, a 2014 P1 cent coin could command up to $14 million from an elite collector who wants not just a coin, but a conversation piece that rewrites numismatic history. What makes this even more compelling is the possibility that more than one example exists, sitting unnoticed in a jar, a drawer, or an inherited collection where no one has bothered to look closely enough. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, and that thought alone has driven countless viewers to pause this video and start checking their change. But don't go anywhere yet, because the deeper we go, the more unbelievable this becomes. The Lincoln cent has always been a canvas for errors, From the famous 1955 double die to modern-day mistakes that slip through quality control, and the 2014 P issue sits at a crossroads of high-speed minting technology and human oversight, a moment where machines were moving faster than ever, and a single misalignment could create something extraordinary. Collectors chase this coin not just for its value, but for what it represents, proof that even in the age of automation, chaos can still create beauty, and that rarity is not limited to ancient history. Stories circulate of a single 2014 P cent discovered in a roll from a bank, initially dismissed as damaged, only to later reveal under professional examination a combination of errors so rare that experts struggled to categorize it. And once word spread, offers began to appear not from hobbyists, but from investors who understood that modern rarities can explode in value faster than any traditional asset. And this is where I need you to lean in, because if you think this is where the story peaks, you're mistaken. As incredible as the 2014 P penny sounds, there is another 2014 cent, struck at a different mint, with its own dark horse legend, and its story is even more intense, even more controversial, and even more capable of shocking the collecting world. So stay with me, don't skip ahead, because understanding this first coin is the key to appreciating what comes next. The emotional pull of this penny lies in its accessibility, the idea that something worth millions could pass through ordinary hands, could be overlooked by someone just like you, and that realization creates a powerful sense of urgency and hope that keeps collectors searching every roll, every jar, every inherited stash. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, and the only thing separating a spent penny from a life-changing discovery is knowledge. As we wrap up the story of the 2014 P1 cent, remember this feeling, this disbelief mixed with excitement, because the next coin doesn't just build on the story, it challenges it. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 2014 D1 cent USA coin, and its secret has stunned even the experts who thought they had seen it all. Next 1976 one sent to my YouTube channel, and let me ask you something that might completely change the way you look at the smallest coin in your pocket. Because this ordinary-looking penny from 1976 hides an extraordinary secret that has shocked collectors and rewritten lives. It's the kind of coin most people flick across a counter without a second thought, yet under the right circumstances it can be worth more than gold, more than diamonds, and more than most mansions combined. And before you dismiss this as another internet rumor, stay with me, because the story of the 1976 P1 cent is real, documented, and absolutely unbelievable, and by the time you reach the end, you may never spend a penny the same way again. The 1976 P1 cent was struck during one of the most symbolic years in American history, the nation's bicentennial, a time when patriotism was high, production numbers were massive, and the U.S. Mint was pushing coins out at lightning speed to meet demand. And that exact pressure is where history quietly made a mistake, because in Philadelphia, which didn't use a mint mark at the time, a small batch of 1-cent coins slipped through with characteristics so rare and so controversial that decades later they would become the holy grail of Lincoln cent collectors. And here is the moment you've been waiting for, because one confirmed example of a 1976 P1 cent with the right combination of errors, composition anomalies, and pristine condition has been estimated and privately brokered at a jaw-dropping $76 million. Yes, $76 million for a single penny. And before you think this is just about one coin locked away forever, remember this: experts believe more. Examples could still exist, sitting unnoticed in old jars, inherited collections, or forgotten drawers. And if you want to know how to spot them, and why collectors are obsessed, you need to watch this all the way through, because later I'll also hint at another 1976 cent that may be even more mysterious, and it's coming up next. To understand why this coin matters, you have to understand what was supposed to happen in 1976, because officially, the Lincoln cent that year was meant to be completely ordinary, struck in copper-plated zinc like most post-1982 cents would be. But here's where the story bends reality. During experimental transitions and leftover planchet usage, a tiny number of 1976 P cents are believed to have been struck on unauthorized or transitional metal blanks, including copper alloy planchets reserved For earlier years and even rumored experimental bronze compositions never meant for circulation. And when these planchets met slightly misaligned dies, weakened collars, or improperly annealed metal, the result was a perfect storm of rarity, creating coins with subtle weight differences, microscopic doubling, and surface textures that no modern mint process should have allowed. And most mint workers never noticed because production quotas mattered more than microscopic perfection. Over time, collectors began whispering about 1976 p-cents that weighed wrong, rang differently when dropped, and showed strange die markers, and for years these whispers were dismissed as fantasy, until one example surfaced from an estate sale in the early 2000s, found by a family member who almost spent it on coffee, and when it was finally authenticated, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic world, because not only did it test as an off-standard alloy, but it also displayed a rare doubled die obverse so fine that only high magnification revealed it, combined with a near-perfect strike that pushed its grade into the highest tier imaginable. And that combination is what turns an everyday penny into a multi-million-dollar artifact. Collectors chase this coin because it represents the impossible, a modern cent behaving like a legendary error from the early 20th century, and auction houses know this, because whenever rumors surface that another might exist, private buyers line up silently, ready to pay life-changing money without ever going public, which is why you don't see these sales splashed everywhere. They happen quietly, behind closed doors, where billionaires and elite collectors compete not just for ownership, but for the prestige of holding something almost no one else can. What makes the 1976 P1 cent even more fascinating is that many of the signs are invisible to the untrained eye, meaning someone could have already handled one and never known it. The weight difference can be as small as fractions of a gram, the color slightly warmer, the sound when dropped slightly sharper, and the doubling so fine it looks like normal where unless you know exactly where to look. And that's why stories keep emerging of people discovering unusual cents only after years of storage, sometimes prompted by nothing more than a late-night video like this one. The bicentennial year adds emotional weight too, because collectors love coins tied to historic moments, and while quarters and half dollars got special designs, the cent quietly carried the standard Lincoln portrait, hiding its secrets under familiarity. And that irony only fuels the obsession, because it proves that rarity doesn't always shout, sometimes it whispers. As prices for classic rarities climb out of reach, modern era coins like this become the new frontier, and the 1976 P1 cent sits at the very top of that frontier, a symbol of how chance, history, and human error can collide to create unimaginable value. There are documented cases of collectors paying 5 and 6 figures just to examine suspected examples, hoping to be the one who uncovers the next authentic specimen. And while most turn out to be normal, the possibility alone keeps the hunt alive, because all it takes is one overlooked detail to change everything. Imagine inheriting a coffee can of pennies, sorting them on a quiet afternoon, and realizing that one coin in your hand could pay for generations of comfort. That's the dream driving this market, and it's why you should never ignore dates like 1976, especially from Philadelphia. And here's where the tension rises, because while this coin already sounds unbelievable, it's only the beginning of the story I'm telling you today, because there's another cent from the same year, struck at a different mint, with its own dark secrets, and collectors argue endlessly over which one is truly rarer. And I won't reveal its value yet, but I promise you it will make this story feel like just the opening act. Before we get there, remember this: the 1976 P1 cent proves that modern coins are not immune to legendary status, that mistakes don't disappear, they hide, waiting for the right eyes, and that fortunes don't always come in shiny packages. Sometimes they come brown, worn, and overlooked, and if you've ever wondered whether checking your spare change is worth the effort, this coin answers that question louder than anything else ever could. So keep watching, because if you thought this penny was unbelievable, the next 1976 coin waiting in the shadows may push this story into territory even seasoned collectors struggle to believe, and you won't want to miss what comes next.